My name is Michelle, and I'm 30 years old. Today was supposed to be just another routine industry event, a room full of familiar faces from the mobile manufacturing world, where I could easily blend into the crowd. But life rarely sticks to the plan. As I navigate the conference hall, looking for a quiet spot to grab a drink, I hear a voice that makes my stomach tighten. It's Jacob. We divorced 2 years ago, yet somehow, he still manages to stir something inside me. There he is, standing with a group, his voice booming just as I remember Jacob, always needing the spotlight, always seeking validation. When our eyes meet briefly, I can feel the weight of his unspoken judgment, his silent critique of the past we shared. He doesn't need to say it aloud. His presence is enough to remind me of everything that fell apart, our marriage and, in his mind, my leadership of the business. But I'm not that woman anymore. I've rebuilt myself since then, and I refuse to let him take up space in my thoughts. His attempt to get under my skin won't work. I turn away, focusing instead on the conversations around me, immersing myself in the company of colleagues who respect what I've accomplished. I can still hear Jacob in the distance, his words laced with bitterness, trying to provoke a reaction, but I won't give him that satisfaction. I take a deep breath, grounding myself in the knowledge that I'm stronger now, that his petty jabs can't shake me. He no longer holds the power he once did. This moment, this event, and my future, none of it belongs to him. As the night goes on, I continue making small talk and engaging with those around me, but part of my mind still lingers on Jacob. His presence is a reminder of what I've been through, but it also reminds me of how far I've come. I've learned to move forward, even when unexpected encounters like this try to pull me back. This is my life, and I'm writing my own story now. Looking back, it's almost hard to believe how full of hope we were in the beginning. Our marriage started with big dreams, dreams of a shared future, of building something great together. I remember the excitement of buying our first home, the late-night talks about our ambitions. It seemed like we were aligned. But life has a way of unmasking hidden truths. Infertility was our first real test. At first, we faced it together, but over time, the weight of it became too much. I was consumed by feelings of failure, but instead of supporting me, Jacob began to withdraw. He became distant, and I could sense the cracks forming between us. Late nights turned into excuses, and eventually, the truth emerged. Jacob had been seeing someone else, someone younger, Andrea. Our confrontation was as messy as our divorce. I was hurt, angry, at him, at myself, at the world for how everything had unraveled. In the aftermath, I threw myself into work. The business became my focus, my way of proving that I could thrive on my own. With my father's belief in me, I took on more responsibilities and found my footing in leadership. It wasn't easy, but I've grown stronger, and now, I'm determined to keep moving forward, with or without Jacob in my rear view. Despite everything, the past still lingers, but I've learned to live with it. My time with Jacob, though painful, taught me lessons about strength and resilience that I didn't know I was capable of. It's a bittersweet realization, but it's the reality I've come to accept. I tried to ignore the signs, but Jacob's behavior grew more suspicious with time. He became distant, his excuses for late nights more frequent. Then, one day, I overheard a phone call that confirmed what I had been dreading. His voice, soft and affectionate, sounded nothing like the man he had become with me. I knew then that my worst fears had come to life. As hard as it was, I decided to gather evidence. It didn't take long. Andrea's name was all over his phone, their messages and calls far more intimate than I could bear. When I confronted him, there were no lies, no justifications. His cold, emotionless response made me realize the man I had married was gone. The divorce was inevitable, but it wasn't easy. It was a long, painful process, one neither of us could walk away from unscathed. The emotional toll was heavy, each of us fighting to salvage whatever dignity we had left. But when it was over, I walked away with my head held high, determined that his betrayal wouldn't define me. Through it all, my family stood by me, especially my father. He was my constant, his faith in me a source of strength when I had none left. The business became my escape, a place where I could focus and leave the pain behind. Jacob may have broken my heart, but he didn't break my spirit. I emerged from the divorce stronger, more determined to shape my own future. I realized my worth wasn't dependent on anyone else. and that I was capable of more than I had ever believed. After the divorce, I threw myself into my work. The family business became my sanctuary, and I embraced every challenge it brought. With my father's guidance, we navigated the complexities of the industry, and his support gave me the confidence I needed. Slowly, life began to feel normal again. The pain of Jacob's betrayal dulled, and I stopped measuring my worth through his eyes. Under my leadership, the company flourished, and I rediscovered my sense of accomplishment. I hadn't felt such lightness in a long time. Then, amidst the turmoil, I met someone who reignited the spark in my life. He worked as my assistant in the family business, and it was his kindness and patience that set him apart. I was cautious at first, hesitant to open up again after being hurt, but he was persistent, gently breaking down the walls I had built around my heart. Slowly, I began to trust once more. We started spending time together outside of work, and before long, I realized I was smiling more often. He reminded me what it felt like to be truly seen, cared for without any ulterior motives. My family noticed the change and supported me, happy to see me finding joy after all I had endured. Meanwhile, Jacob's life was spiraling. I heard bits and pieces from mutual acquaintances, financial troubles, tension with Andrea, but I kept my distance. I refused to be dragged back into his chaos. My focus was on creating a new life, one where I could thrive independently. Each day I grew more confident in my choices. The business flourished, and my personal life blossomed too. I had faced adversity, and now I was stronger, embracing the future with open arms. With every day that passed, my new relationship felt less like a gamble and more like a fresh start. I was no longer stuck in the past. Instead, I was focused on the happiness and excitement of what lay ahead. My assistant became more than just a colleague, he was my partner. In every sense of the word, we explored new places together, shared laughter, and created memories that made the darkness of the past seem distant. He brought warmth back into my life, filling the void that Jacob had left behind. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely happy. My family welcomed him with open arms, relieved to see me smiling again. My father, especially, saw how well we complemented each other, both professionally and personally. It was a testament to the strength I had regained, allowing myself to love again without fear. As Jacob's life unraveled further, whispers of his struggles grew louder: financial issues, problems with Andrea. His actions had finally caught up with him, but I refused to dwell on his troubles. My focus was on my own happiness. My partner and I worked hard, building the business while nurturing our relationship. Each challenge brought us closer together, and I felt empowered, unburdened by the shadows of the past. I was writing a new chapter in my life, one filled with possibility. One evening, at a company event, I felt a deep sense of pride. Our business was thriving, and I was there to strengthen our network. My partner stood by my side as we mingled with colleagues. For once, my past felt firmly behind me. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jacob, with Andrea beside him. The sight was unsettling, but I steeled myself, determined not to let him shake me. He looked tired, worn down, and Andrea seemed equally uneasy. Eventually, they approached, and the tension was palpable. Jacob tried to hide his desperation behind a weak smile, but his intentions were obvious. His financial problems had reached a breaking point, and he was hoping for a lifeline. He spoke of his current struggles, subtly hinting at needing help. Andrea's discomfort was evident, and their strained relationship was plain to see. They wanted my help, but I had no intention of getting involved. I kept my composure, listening politely but keeping a firm distance. When Jacob pressed further, I calmly redirected the conversation back to the event, making it clear I wouldn't be dragged into his chaos. The calm I felt was liberating. I no longer owed Jacob anything. His problems were not mine to fix. With my partner by my side, offering silent support, we moved on, leaving Jacob and Andrea behind, where they belonged. I had a future to build, and nothing was going to derail my progress. After that night, Jacob tried to contact me several times, but I stood firm in my decision to cut ties. He requested meetings, sent messages, and appealed to our past, but I responded with silence. I had learned my lesson. Blocking him out was difficult, but it was necessary. I needed to prioritize my well-being and the life I was building with my partner. That meant leaving behind the part of my life that no longer served me. As I reflected on my journey, I realized how much I had grown. The betrayal I had experienced was painful, but it had also sparked a transformation. I had rediscovered my inner strength, reclaimed my self-worth, and learned to trust again. Surrounding myself with people who truly cared had made all the difference. My partner's quiet presence had been a constant source of comfort, and together, we were building a future full of promise, one free from the shadows of the past. Meanwhile, Jacob's world continued to fall apart. From what I gathered, his financial troubles had worsened, and his marriage to Andrea was barely holding on. The consequences of his choices were catching up to him, and he had no one to blame but himself. It was a powerful reminder to me about the importance of staying true to oneself. Jacob had let pride and deceit guide his decisions, and now he was paying the price. As for me, I had moved on, leaving the past behind and embracing the opportunities that lay ahead. Every day brought new challenges and joys, and I welcomed them with open arms. I had finally closed the chapter on Jacob and everything he represented, ready to write the next part of my story on my own terms. Looking back on my journey, I can see how much I've grown since those turbulent days with Jacob. His betrayal was devastating, but it also led me to discover a strength I didn't know I had. It's a bittersweet realization, but that journey taught me invaluable lessons about resilience and self-respect. Since our paths diverged, I've built a life I'm genuinely proud of. The family business is thriving, and I've earned the respect of my colleagues in the industry. More importantly, I've found love again, and I'm surrounded by people who truly care about me. Every day, I focus on the endless possibilities ahead, knowing that I've moved beyond the shadows of my past. My partner and I are excitedly planning our future together, looking forward to new adventures and moments of joy. I feel liberated, no longer weighed down by the burdens of past betrayals. As for Jacob, his future remains uncertain. His life, shaped by pride and deceit, is now defined by the consequences of his actions. While I bear no ill will toward him, I've learned the importance of keeping my distance. His journey is his own to navigate, and I wish him the best as he faces his challenges. In closing this chapter, I find a sense of peace. The lessons I've learned about trust, resilience, and the power of self-love have been invaluable. The cost of pride is high, but in the end, I've emerged stronger and more determined. With a renewed sense of purpose, I look forward to the bright future ahead, knowing that my story is mine to write, and this time, I'm writing it on my own terms.